So welcome again to another session of Juxtapositions, Perspectives on Contemporary Cultural Production, and today with a special guest, Anna Yeboah, and we are entering the field of architecture. I think this is the first lecture on architecture this semester. So Anna, I first met a few years ago, I think, at the Berlinische Galerie, a talk that you were involved in that Matilda Krzyzowski was moderating, and afterwards we very briefly worked on a pitch for an exhibition, which eventually never happened, but this is when I got to kind of get to know you a little bit more, or your ways of working, and also appreciating your ways of working. You are an architect and a curator. You studied architecture with a focus on cultural theory at the Technical University of Munich and the UPC in Barcelona. And Anna's research and artistic practice deals with architecture, but rather with the systems of power in and within architecture and urban planning. And her research on the topic has been shown at the 15th Venice Architecture Biennale and published in international professional media of all sorts. Anna was also a lecturer at the Institute for History and Theory of Design here at the Berlin University of the Arts. And since 2020, Anna has been responsible for the overall coordination of the 5-year model project, which is actually ending. We just talked about this year. Decolonial, or in English, the Decolonial Remembrance Culture in the City for the Initiative of Black People in Germany. So please give a warm applause to Anna.
Thank you, Lukas, for inviting me to talk here today, and thank you everybody who showed up in person or in the digital space to my TED Talk, basically. As Lukas has said, for the past 4.5 years, I've been working as the general coordinator for a pilot project called Decolonial Remembrance Culture in the City. So this has been my main focus, but for today, Lukas asked me to go further back into my archive and to also show older projects and the work that led to me working at the Decoloniale, which was also a new experience for me. So we will spend more time on Decoloniale later, and for now I will show you my archive. An important project, I worked on it for 1.5 years, was legislating architecture. This was a project initiated by Brandluber Plus and Christopher Roth. And in a nutshell, this project explored how architecture is shaped by societal regulatory systems and law. So in architecture, we are very used to working with the constraints and the conditions made by law, but this project was an approach to go beyond that and to see how these laws and regulations can also be a tool of design and not as much obstacles. So questions we had were, can planners and designers influence the definitions of these constraints, and instead of being just mere executors. I came to be part of this project first as a protagonist and later as a researcher and editor. So I need to go one step back. This picture is showing Micella Japici. She was at the time, this picture is maybe from 2014. At that time, she was the head of the Turkish Chamber of Architects, and you can see her here at the Occupy Gezi protests in front row. So at this time, I was studying architecture still in Munich, and I had a gut feeling that I was not going to be like a traditional architect and drawing, and it was also a very intense political time where we had mass protests on different squares throughout the Maghreb. We remember Tahrirplatz, Maidan was a big protest back then, and also Gezi Park. And I took a chance for my bachelor thesis to not plan a building and design, I don't know, a nice house, but I traveled to Turkey to see what was the root cause of these protests, how the squares look like, what the urban life, how the urban life is in contact with architects. And I came across the role of the Turkish Architecture Chamber, which was in the front row of these protests. I wrote an essay about that. It was a very complicated issue, and I must admit, looking back at it now, it was very much more complex and complicated than I understood at that time. But I applied the findings that I had there to the German system, asking why the German Architectural Chamber was not political at all, and how architecture in general was more on the conservative side, not questioning how the urban fabric around them came together. Acht Plus at the time had an open call for essays on legislating architecture, and I handed that in, and this is how I came in contact with Arno Brandlhuber and his team, who were preparing this issue on legislating architecture, which later became a film, the film which was shown at the different biennales. Eventually I started working there and got more into the topic, and the film then developed to be like a 3-part series, with a second part dealing with the property. It was called the property drama. So in this episode we ask who owns the ground and why, and how does property legislation determine the world we live in, and does it have the ability to still serve the public good? And it was to try to look beyond standard practices of real estate and privatization, and to understand how property is also used as a means of control. I brought the trailer. It's very short, but it gives you an insight on how architecture in a non-traditional can be a movie that is researching a certain topic. I hope it does work. Let's see.
In München ist der Bodenpreis seit 1950 bis 1972, das sagte ich, um 352% und bis heute um etwa 36.000% gewachsen.
The land belongs to everybody. And of course, we all know ecologically, if I have a stream in my property, you have a stream in your property, it's the same stream. And so what I do in my property with the stream is going to affect you, etc., etc.
An architecture of good intention does not solve anything. If we do not change our way of looking at the problems, our way of inventing tools, our way of trying to find solutions. So if we do not change our culture, our way of doing, our way of thinking, I do not think that we can find any solution. To approach the problem of social injustice, reproducing model of housing that are model of housing of 50 years ago makes no sense. Not to rethink what does it mean today living.
Ohne ein Auto kann ich durchaus leben, ja? Aber ohne dass ich Grund und Boden in Anspruch nehme, kann ich nicht leben. Und habe Grund und Boden dann gleichgesetzt mit Wasser und mit Luft. Und ich richte jetzt eine Frage an die Gesellschaft und Sie vertreten ja die Gesellschaft. Warum schweigt die Gesellschaft dazu? Warum ist das ein Problem, das überhaupt nicht auf der Tagesordnung erkennbar ist?
I mean, in England, when you had those laws of freehold and leasehold, the leasehold was great. The idea of private property to me is anomalous. I don't think we should have it.
Yeah, this is the trailer. You can find all the movies online, but I would say the second part aged rather good. The third part, not so well. But you can make your own picture. So this was my starting point in doing architecture, but not architecture. And from this project, I went on to join. Starting again. Okay. I went on to join Stefan Trüby and Philipp Krüpe in their project Rechte Räume, right-wing spaces. It's an ongoing project with a great homepage. It's a great archive. I would encourage you to look it up. It has very different and very interesting positions on it to see how authoritarian networks are using space and the city as a means for their own politics. It's basically like an atlas, and it's ever growing, and you could also contribute with topics and idea if you had ideas. But I don't want to spend too much time with this project and rather jump to the Decoloniale, since I've been doing that for 4.5 years now, and we have still half a year left. Let's start. Our main concern with Decoloniale is to critically engage with German colonial history through to remember the injustices and to raise awareness of their multifaceted effects on our present. We want to provide impulses for a vibrant and decentralized memory landscape and for the history and present of the post-colonial city, starting from Berlin but going beyond. So we specifically address how a responsible and critical engagement with coloniality in the cultural field can look like. We have developed and tested different formats, both analog and digital. So we started in 2020 with this project. So at the starting point of the pandemic, so the first 2.5 years were mostly digital, and since then we've been slowly transferring into the physical sphere. And also we have a homepage, www.decoloniale.de, where you can find an archive where you can find all of the things that we did. It's a civil society owned project. This is what makes it a model project, because this is the first time that people that that their ancestors themselves have been affected by colonialism are now included in the critical reappraisal. So we are 3 civil society organizations that are doing this project. It's Berlin Postkolonial, a historian and a Tanzanian guy that have been doing incredible work on Berlin's colonial history for 15 years. Each One Teach One, Iyoto e.V., a black empowerment platform that is situated here in Wedding, that does a lot of different stuff, has a black library, does a lot of work with youth, but beyond also is responsible for the Kompetenznetzwerk Anti-Schwarzer Rassismus, so like a competence network for anti-black racism. And we have the Initiative of Black People in Germany, which is one of the oldest self-organizations for black people here. And I am employed by the Initiative of Black People in Germany to do this project. So the 3 civil society organizations do this project together with the Stadtmuseum Berlin. It's a historic, larger museum institution here in Berlin. And they're not, they are administering our fundings, basically. We are funded by the Kulturstiftung des Bundes and the Senatsverwaltung for Culture and Social Cohesion, as it's now called. And I always bring this slide as well. It looks very complicated, but I want to make the point that this project is not administered by the Stiftung Stadtmuseum or the funding institutions, but by the civil society organizations. So we all have one vote in the steering committee. Sorry, the slide is in Germany. And the Stiftung Stadtmuseum has only one vote, so we're always in the majority. This is very important for us to be in charge of the content that we produce. So I don't know if there are 2 things for you to take away, maybe that civil society engagement is very crucial and urgently needed when dealing with issues and topics like colonialism. And it's very crucial to critiquing those in power and dealing with state injustice. You need to get organized. And the second thing is, before you start a project, do power critical due diligence to see how the structure of the project is working and if it is working in your favor. Yeah, the Decoloniale is divided in 4 subsegments. According also to the expertise of the different actors that are involved. So Iyoto, Each One Teach One, they are in charge of the sub-project. It's called Interventions. Within this sub-project, we do a yearly festival. We have a residency program. Usually I would invite you to apply, but we just started our last term, so the chance is over for now. But you will be able to see the interventions of the artists selected this year in November. And we have a think tank series that is bi-quarterly. Berlin Postkolonial, as I said, they are historians, it's their expertise. They have a sub-project called Representations. With this sub-project, we are doing exhibitions, one every year. I have brought 2 examples. We are going to look at them very soon. But yeah, the idea is also with Decoloniale that civil society actors do work together with institutions, and in this sub-project we are doing this maybe the most intensely because we really work together with district museums. The third project is called Histories, Geschichten. It's a digital mapping project. You can find it on our homepage, www.decoloniale.de. And there we are mapping German colonial history. So the approach here was to say, when we started this project in 2020, there was barely any institution that was dealing with that history, and the knowledge about German colonialism was very much situated in civil society and not with the mainstream institutions. So this mapping project is seeking to channel all these informations that is spread out to civil society and make it available on a very accessible manner. So no academic text, but a lot of pictures, multimedia approach, and to really show how Berlin is connected with the rest of the world through its own politics. So on this map, you will find life and object stories, but also stories about institutions and persons that have worked and lived here. And the last project, it's called Developments, Entwicklungen in German. It's a weird project where we are trying to consult museums on how to deal with their racist objects, how to conduct anti-racist exhibitions. We had different phases with this sub-project, but overall I think it was worthwhile creating a network of very motivated museum professionals who want to do better. So for now, I wanted to show you this exhibition, Looking Back. It's a permanent exhibition that is shown in the Bezirksmuseum Treptow. Yeah, and it's permanent, so you cannot miss it. If you have not seen it, I invite you to go. It's free of charge, and there's a lot of energy that fled into this. This exhibition, the first version of it was opened in 2017, so 3 years before the Decoloniale project started. And it was the first exhibition, the first permanent exhibition dealing with colonialism and racism in Berlin. It focuses on the history and the aftermath of the first German colonial exhibition, where 106 people were recruited by the Deutsches Reich government and the colonial authorities in the former German colonies, and they were brought to Germany to be put here on display in the Treptower Park. The colonial exhibition did not happen in a vacuum, so it was in contrast to a commercial exhibition in which Germany was showing its own power in, I don't know, discovering and making new technologies. And for the architecture lovers, there was also another exhibition part that was called Alt Berlin, Old Berlin. So you had 3 parts, which I would say do form a lot of the German psyche, a historical Disneyland, Old Town City, a commercial exhibition, and a colonial exhibition, which was shown the others. The origin story of that exhibition was that the museum wanted to deal with this colonial exhibition, and they actually did a very racist concept, and afterwards went to see Berlin Postkolonial and the initiative of Black people in Germany, asking them how they would like this concept, and they would say, no, it's not good, it's actually reenacting all of the violence again. And the museum director was brave enough to toss the whole concept and work together with these organizations on a new one. And a new concept, it highlights the lives and the resistance of these 106 people, so it puts them in the center. These children and women and men from Africa and Oceania is honoring them. Here you can see a picture of the exhibition. So the biggest challenge of by doing this exhibition was to talk about this injustice without reproducing it in any form, so neither visually nor in terms of content. And based on this premise, the previous exhibition from 2017 was revised graphically mostly. As a curatorial team, we were faced with the absence of subjective representations, and even though the historical exhibition is extremely well documented. The available source material, particularly the photographs, not only originate from the specific colonial context of the historical colonial exhibition, but also reflect the violent perspective of the exhibition organizers. They are an expression of their ideology, of their white supremacist views, and they are romanticizing the raw reality of the colonial project by degrading the participants of the historical exhibition as uncivilized and backwards, or by staging a rural idyll that has never existed. These portraits of the 106 participants that you see in the exhibitions were taken during the discriminatory measurement of their bodies by the Berlin anthropologist Felix von Luschan. Felix von Luschan was not only a board member of the German colonial exhibition, but also the director of the Royal Museum for Ethnology. So his collection of skulls later was taken over by Nazi race hygienist Eugen Fischer, becoming the basis for a pseudo-scientific Nazi racial ideology. We display these portraits in a dark room to create a solemn atmosphere. Since this is a permanent exhibition that does not charge admission, we saw the opportunity to create a memorial space here, fostering continuous engagement with German colonialism and its relevance for present-day coexistence. And considering that some of the participants were later brutally murdered by German troops during the genocide of the Oberherero and Nama, this particular room gains even deeper significance. In this picture, you can see historian Talita Bangara. She's from Namibia, and she was conducting oral history and researching the descendants of the Oberherero and Nama delegations. And I brought a clip. It's just a small excerpt, but if you go to the exhibition, you can see the whole interview.
So, yeah, it's just such a joy, Talita, to have this conversation with you now. And we agreed we first introduce each other. So this is my dear friend, Talita Nunes. I'm still not able to do the clicks. I'm very sorry. And I know when we met in '95, Talita was working on an oral history project. So she goes back a long way in doing this kind of work. Yep. And after a very, very long detour, it's a very happy development that she came back to it. During the last 2 years or so, which also involved a stay in Berlin and involvement in the work post-colonial initiatives, various places in Germany where she also went and gave statements. And so it was sort of a obvious thing, I believe, that she did this work in her native village, where she comes from, Ribeon in southern Namibia, which is the traditional capital of the Hovissen or Witbooi group. Talita, how did you first get to know about this exhibition, Zurückgeschaut, at the Treptow Museum? Can you say something?
Thank you. Yes, for sure. Yeah, in 2017, then I came to Germany for my studies in Germany. And then you, Reinhard, you wanted to show me Berlin, and then you took me to Treptow Museum. And as we entered and I can still visualize it on my vision, I saw it on the wall, my people. And then immediately I said, but these are my people, these are my people, these are my people. And later on I came closer and then I saw the names and I said, no, but these are my people. It's not just the ordinary names. Yes, we have got sub-tribe names, but then when you saw immediately the surname, the Jot, and then the Witbooi, then you know that is my people. And that's how I saw them and recognized them. And then also saw the exhibition, yeah.
But one thing that I also wondered about was, we are talking about 1896, so 1896. So when we go back in time, the end of the war between Hendrik Witbooi and the Schutztrupp, the German soldiers, where the Hendrik Witbooi was forced to sign that protection treaty, so-called protection treaty. That was not even 3 years before. It was in September 1894. And 2 years, I'm sorry, not even 2 years. And the raid on the settlement at Hornkranz also was just a little bit more than 3 years before that, when the Germans suddenly invaded that settlement and killed a lot of mainly women and children, and took women and children as prisoners to Windhoek. So I wonder what this has meant for these people.
You wonder?
I wonder what this has meant for these people. After this very short time, they come to Berlin, sort of into the center of German power that has overwhelmed them.
Yeah, it is, Reinhard. And for us, the very first thing is only that when we normally have got our annual Professor Festival, we also specifically acknowledge and also celebrate Horankrans. For the very fact is that Horankrans is the first a village or a settlement which was of the old legendary Hendrik Witwe, because it was sort of his head office from where he has been doing instructions, maybe how to fight the war and all these type of things. But for us, it was the first shot has been shot on us before even thinking about the genocide. And therefore, for us, we can never forget Horankrans, because it was a very dreadful, horrible, terrible day for us. Even the captain himself lose his own wife. His own disabled son also got shot by the Germans. Therefore, for us, the genocide didn't start only in the 1905 to 1908, but it already started for us in 1896, as you rightfully say. Especially for us, the Professor, it has been continuing on and continuing on. That's why for us, the Professor tribe are very much aware what has happened and what has transpired during the war of the German until the genocide. And we preserve it, and that's why the oral history is so much alive amongst us, the Professor people, because our elders keep on narrating to us what transpired. Because one thing is that our people were not writers, they don't really write, but they will remember and then they will narrate it for us.
Yeah, it was a lot of details in the small interview, but oh, not again from the start. I wanted to show it, to have Talita's voice in this room. When I showed this picture was taken in 1896 during the colonial exhibition, and is showing the Overherero and Nama delegation from Namibia. It is the only picture that we have from that time that was conducted by the people themselves. So this delegation, they paid a photographer to have this picture taken as a memory. They have taken it back to Namibia, and it came back to us here in Berlin because their village was later raided in the genocide of 1904, and the German troops, especially Theodor Leutwein, he took this image, this picture, this photography from one of the raided homes and published it in his own book. And this is how it was preserved and how we know it. And I think this interview, the small excerpt we saw from Talita, is again describing that in this time in 1896, when this delegation came, they were already under attack from the Germans. And still these people were brave enough to ship across the world on a sailing boat for months to do diplomatic work here in Germany. They were trying to talk to officials and politicians to fight for better living conditions at home. And this picture is the proof. This is why I brought it, and I wanted to also show this excerpt from Talita's interview. Again, colonialism is such an experience that is affecting like generations and generations of people. And for the second exhibition we did with the Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg Museum in 2022, which was called Despite All, Migration to the Colonial Metropolis of Berlin. We were following the next generations, so to say. From the 106 persons that were part of the German colonial exhibition in Treptower Park, roughly 22 of them stayed here in Berlin, and they found families and jobs, and they became Berliners for generations afterwards. As like with Talita, we were able to build up contact with descendants of these people. So we had in the exhibition this very special archive materials from this private archive, the private photo albums of the families, showing how these families managed to survive in Germany. So coming in 1896, their descendants were then also prosecuted during the Nazi era. Some of them even got killed in Konzentrationslagern. With the Decoloniale project, we are also involved with public memory on these persons. So we have been able to lay, I think, in the past 4 years, 4 or 5 Stolpersteine for victims, black victims of Nazism. So in total, we have now 6 Stolpersteine for black person in Berlin. And unfortunately, some of them are descendants of those people who were brought to the colonial exhibition in Treptow. We did a 3rd exhibition as well. It was covering the time after Germany was formal colonial power. It was called Stand in Solidarity, covering the Weimar period from 1919 to 1933. It was a time when Germany was not a formal colonial power, and a lot of anti-colonial fighters came to Berlin to do political work here. So this again was very interesting also to see how moments of solidarity came up between African and Chinese anti-colonial fighters, for example. Unfortunately, it's also over, but we're now working on our final publication where we will document more of this. One of the persons who came to Berlin in the 1896 exhibition was Martin Yeboah. You can see him on this picture. This black train conductor. He was maybe 17 or 18 years young when he was in this colonial exhibition, and then later on he stayed in Berlin, became a craftsman, and then the first black U-Bahn conductor, which was a very big show at that time. So the BVG already then knew how to make publicity. This is from their archive. But Martin Yeboah for us was not only this public figure as a train conductor, he was also a political activist. He was heading the Yeboah petition, which was handed in 1919 at this place in the former Reichskolonialamt, and the Yeboah petition was demanding equal rights for black Africans who were living in Germany, so to say. If you come here in Wilhelmstraße, you can find like a memory board, eine Infostele on this petition, and also the other people that supported it. It's very dear to us because this was the first time the Berlin Senate was commemorating anti-colonial action in public space, actually. So across from the street, you can maybe, I don't know, those who are in Berlin know that corner, especially the architects. Can you see my mouse? Yeah. This building is the Czech embassy, and here's the U-Bahnhof M-Straße, very famously, and this is Wilhelmstraße. Here you have the topography of terror, Finanzamt, and so on and so forth. And the Decolonial project, we are sitting vice versa, the former Reichskolonialamt here in a DDR prefab building, which used to be the site of the Reichskanzlerpalais. So this is also the site where the Berlin Conference took place in 1884. Also close to this area, we have the former Foreign Ministry, Auswärtiges Amt, and the headquarter of the German bank, which has a rather racist mural on its entrance. So this is, the center of German colonialism. And it speaks maybe also to the state of memory culture that before our project moved in here in 2020, this was a hairdresser, and there was no commemoration at all. No, it's not true. There was also one Infostele, a memorial plaque, but this one was not initiated by the Senate, but it was initiated by the black community. So they collected money among themselves to erect this memorial plaque. It's still there. So one of our demands for sure is that we need proper spaces to commemorate these historical events, but also to have archive and education centers that do this work consistently. Also, as Lukas has mentioned, the Decolonial project is ending later this year. We are now in the turn of preparing our last exhibition. It will open on November 14th, so if you are in Berlin, mark the date. For 3 days, we will do a last round of public interventions, public program, concerts, opening an exhibition, doing city walks, this is already the last slide. It's showing a screenshot from our map, which I have mentioned before. You can find it on decoloniale.de with the colonial history all over Germany. And I think my time is over. We want to have maybe a discussion too. And thank you for being patient and quiet and listening.
This is a good slide for the end, Anna. As you know, and sorry, now I recognize, sorry, it took me a moment, thank you for being here as a former speaker. I have a bunch of questions. I'll start with my question, then in our intimate round, it's up to you to continue with the questions. I was wondering, well, by the way, is my mic on, really, Jakob? Yeah, okay. Your task is, I guess, also a difficult one because you're trying to make like silenced voices heard, or you're trying to make the seemingly invisible visible. And I'm wondering, maybe you can step a little bit for the camera towards me. Hear a little bit of your experience in doing that, like how the civic society kind of reacted, what the public reactions were, and where you felt, the biggest obstacles or the biggest challenges in this work.
Yeah. So initially the feedback has been very open and interested. We started in 2020. It was also the summer when George Floyd was being killed, and there were 20,000 people on Alexanderplatz screaming Black Lives Matter, and all the institutions were seemingly very open and interested, but the obstacle we faced actually was to do this work in a sustainable way. Mm-hmm. So what we quickly learned is that almost everybody is interested, almost any institution seems to be interested, but they want to have these topics and these conversations with a quick fix. And they are still not ready to really share power and to have those who are really affected in powerful positions.
Yeah, that would have been also my guess, or my experience is that often they're like they're almost like quick intervention, so have it kind of checked and off the to-do list, so to speak.
Yeah.
But what have been your strategies to, I don't know, create a more long-lasting or like literally sustainable approach to that?
I think it's very hard to do with a project that has also an end datum, an end date, so to say. But what for me is very important is to distribute the resources we have to do this project, also like beyond ourselves and the institutions, like really to the community, and meaning not only the Afro-German community that is doing the work here, but beyond in the former territories where also a lot of work is being done and where no funding is coming through. So for me, this is economically like the most sustainable thing we can do, is to, be somehow pirates for this funding to be in the right place. And the work with institutions, I don't know. I have only one learning, that it makes only sense if the very head of the institution is interested and on board, and not to do this work like a quick intervention coming from the side and then going again, but like really pressing to have like a lengthy process that is involving all levels of the institutions.
And is there anything, I'm wondering, after like 5 years of such a project, of a task of like remaining infrastructure, so to speak, that are lasting?
So we are hoping, and we have signs that our project space in the Wilhelmstraße will be secured, but I am wondering myself what it's worth if nobody is in there. So it's very obvious that politically continuous research, continuous work on this topic is not supported. So we will have to find a strategy, again, within civil society to secure the findings, because on this semi-official level, it's simply not supported, it's not wanted at this point.
But you don't have any examples of possible strategies?
Not yet, no. We have to come up with something. If you have
open for suggestions.
Open for suggestions. Yeah.
And before it's up to you guys, how would you describe your biggest learning in these 5 years?
That is a really hard question. Again, I think my personal learning is also I had ideas on how to conduct a decolonial project and how we do it and who should be included. But the most valuable input we had in our programs were always from the people who were affected themselves. So also for us, being Black members of this team in Decoloniale, it's our task to really sit down and listen to what people from the continent do have to say. Another mistake we have been doing in the beginning is not looking so much at what the Asian community is doing, because there has been German colonialism in Asian territories and Oceania. We were not so sensitive in the beginning, and for the past year we also have been working with Asian self-organizations, and also there learning a lot, because within this discourse on German colonialism there are still more voices that are even more marginalized than ours. So it's this would be the learnings, no? To be open and to listen and to always see where exclusions are happening and to do the best to open up these exclusions.
I mean, it's a big learning, I think, for every one of us. I think the aspect of like listening is something that we really have to learn again in many cases. But now to you guys, or also to the online audience, please ask your questions. It will not be recorded. No shame in the game. Anyone dares? Yes, please.
Thank you for the lecture. It was really, really great. And I've been following the work of people in Berlin since I've been in Berlin. So, yeah, it's great to hear about the project. I also really love that you kind of opened on the funding structure, which is super interesting, right? Like how the power and the money obviously is kind of deeply political, right, within an organization. And it also showed, I suppose, how you position yourself as like a kind of civil society group that's somehow channeling state money, which is obviously so tied to like the project of questioning who has ownership over like memory politics. And you've been doing the project now for 4 years. I was just wondering, kind of, in those 4 years, how much has that diagram kind of, and just generally the way that you're structuring your kind of organization and the way you're framing what you're doing, how much have you learned in that 4 years? Like how has it kind of changed and been shaped by the context and kind of, because it feels like somehow there's such a lack of these kinds of projects happening in Germany, you're having to kind of like make the path as you were going. And so you must have kind of learned so much along the way that even though maybe after this 4 years it's kind of closing in some capacity, could provide like useful frameworks for other organizations, for example.
I do have to repeat this for the recording, because so that was it was a long one, but maybe in continuation of my question on the biggest learnings, but it's also kind of what, since you started with a project that's kind of has been unique, so there were not many blueprints to look at least in Germany, and what kind of framework you established or could have been can be used, so to speak, afterwards.
Framework changed, and then what other kind of like lessons, I suppose, as a blueprint for future organizations that are working with civil society in this way?
Yeah, there are different answers to this question, I would say, because it was a 5-year project, and many of the things we do were drafted in 2019. And we still had to conduct them in 2022 or 2023. So we were not like completely free to always adapt and find new routes. Also, we cannot like, also this was my learning because I was not exhibition maker before. It takes a very, very long time. So with exhibitions, you cannot react to like daily political situations, so to say. You need like a very long time frame before. So in that sense, I always, if I had to like, I don't know, write a new funding application again, I would try to find ways to have the program also more flexible, because having 5 years to do this work was right and important and unique, because these organizations were only used to have like small funding for one project, half a year, 1 year max. And it was very important to have like this a decent structure. We are now, I don't know, 11 persons working there. And this was, so the structure was very good to have it like growing and stable. And on the program side, I would have wanted more flexibility to adapt after learnings. And also, I feel like with the whole working in project logics, systems, there is something that makes people overwork, because you write a funding and you have certain ideas of what you want to do, and you want to achieve a lot, and then you do it, and this takes time from reflecting of what you have been done. So this is work we have to do now for the whole 5 years, because we opened one exhibition and the next day we were sitting with the next museum to work on the next exhibition. So this was also, sometimes I feel like it was another strategy of keeping activists busy. So yeah, this again speaks to the flexibility you have to make room for in the very beginning when you draft a project, while also have a structure that I showed in the beginning that is very stable and reliable.
Yes?
Did you talk a bit about like the strategies of like working with, or kind of collaborating, especially like in the context of working with like 3 different organizations? So I imagine there's a lot of difficulties that come up with that.
Yeah.
I repeat the question quickly, that's a good one. Can you share your strategies in collaborating with 3 different, it's each one teach one, the Initiative for Black People in Germany and
Berlin Postkoloniale.
Berlin Postkoloniale, because kind of one of the big topics actually in this, thank you for this question, in this lecture series is collaborations of all sorts. And that's not an easy one. I'm the advocate for collaboration, but what's your strategies, themes, schemes, and dreams?
Yeah, I think also there the structure was very beneficial, like parting the whole project according to expertise. We did have slightly no conflicts among the civil society actors, because we were collaborating among each other, but we were collaborating with institutions, and that was the hard one. So this also helped to
keep the group
together. I don't know, find another enemy that is worth tackling, I would say. Yeah.
And how about, I was thinking in 2020, it was 1920, had an exhibition, and we had a group, the Black Archives from the Netherlands. So there are other projects, they've been doing this maybe since, also not so long, 2015 I think they started. But has there been any exchange of kind of knowledge, experience with other projects in the European context, looking at colonial, decolonial structures, histories in the city?
No, actually not. How come? We were very busy with Germany, which is also a pity. But within this mapping project I showed you, there are various collaborations with smaller groups that are working in Hamburg, Bremen, Essen, and so on and so forth. And then we were very much concentrating on the German framework, because we knew there is such a big lack, there's so much missing that we needed to start there. But for sure, it would be totally worthwhile enlarging this approach to a European project, because colonialism at the end was a European project. It was not German project alone, but still, since we're working in this context, we have to start at this point and try to, always start with your own Haustüre, no? Before you take from the others.
Another question from you guys? Yeah, please.
At the beginning, I think it was thank you so much for the lecture. At the beginning, I think it was the first exhibition in Treptow. You mentioned kind of developing a methodology to not expand upon the harm and the reproduction of work. And I was wondering if you could expand on those methodologies a bit further. You mentioned graphic.
Yeah, I would try to make, we had basically 3 principles. One was not showing at all, weglassen, like really radically leave out things that could be harmful to our community. We had another methodology about irritating. I will go back to see this picture. Maybe we can see something. Ah, no, it's off. It's off.
Might be turning on again.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you can see it. It's small anyways. But we were irritating because we were seeing that we had to use some terms or pictures to explain the story. You cannot leave it all out, no? So in that case, we were irritating. Can you see in the middle picture here, this text? You can see that some words are behind bars, so this makes you stumble across the word, and we hope that it would engage the audience with thinking critically about what is written there. And the third principle was to highlight resistance. So the concept in general was very much focused on resistance and on the daily lives of the people who were put on display. But also in the graphics, we were then again highlighting all the acts of resistance, and also in the Vermittlung.
Mediation.
In the mediation, we put a very strong focus on telling these resistance stories, and I think this together is like a great toolkit. I mean, this was like in the form then very easy, but we developed it further for the other exhibitions and still are doing that.
And maybe I have another question, because you're a trained architect. So how does this come into play here? Or does it at all? Or what do you think did your training as an architect, how does it serve you today in your work, in your practice? How do you think this particular training has sharpened your view in the world or the built environment?
I mean, on a practical level, I mean, now I'm working as a general coordinator, like a project manager or something, and I feel like architecture was a very project-driven study program. So you learn how to think through a project from A to Z and to present and everything. This is a very basic thing. But with the projects I showed at the beginning of the lecture, from legislating architecture and right-wing spaces, I brought them because these were projects in which I learned to read the city as an archive, or to find histories and stories that are being told in the spatial configuration that is already there, and to really engage with what is existing. This was my interest in architecture more than designing something that is new, and I think this is very much helping in finding an access point to also colonial history in a country that is neglecting this history, but is still formed so much by it.
Yeah. Final question from you guys. Otherwise, I come to my final question. Online audience. That was a beautiful answer, by the way, that reading the city as an archive. The last question that every guest here gets is, what's your final piece of advice for all of the becoming architects, designers, fashion artists, musicians, etc.?
It's also a hard one. It sounds cheap, but follow your gut, I would say. No, really, it's like billions of bacteria that are trying to make you being well, and I hope you all find a very good connection to your own intuition, and also be curious and brave enough to follow it. I think, yeah.
Thank you so much. So, thank you, Anna, for joining us. Thank you here for making it here on the Monday evening, and thank you for the online audience. And I'll see you guys next week for the Healing Arts again. and in 2 weeks for Juxtaposition. Another warm applause for Anna, and have a wonderful Monday evening.